the Irrational Confidence Podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Irrational Confidence Podcast. We're talking college football, and the field is set. The College Football Playoff Committee has announced their field of 12. We know who's got first-round byes. We have the home matchups on campus in the cold in December up north. Can't wait for those games, and I cannot wait. We're going to have a snow game. I'm feeling it in my bones. But I'm joined by my co-host, the man who learned why Santa makes all reindeer wear braces. They have buck teeth. My co-host, Fresh. Fresh, how you doing, buddy?
Haps, I'm doing fantastic. Dogs up and taking care of business last night versus Texas and winning the SEC. The playoff field announced. I think it kind of stuck, kind of way we all expected to go with the 12 teams. Obviously there's, no matter what you do, whether it's 4 teams, 12 teams, 64 when it comes to the NCAA tournament for basketball, there's always going to be a couple that are going to be crying about their seed or if they got left out. And you're going to constantly have that noise. We are where we are. Alabama, you had control, you're crying a lot.
Right.
I get it. But you know what? You had chances versus Vanderbilt. You had chances versus Oklahoma, and you lost both those games.
Right.
I hear fan bases crying, especially from Alabama right now. Well, we need to stop scheduling out-of-conference hard games. Just, have a bunch of cupcakes. It doesn't matter because your losses were all conference losses. So you could schedule whoever you want. Your 3 losses were all in the league. So
right.
It's just win your football games and move forward. Now, I think we did see, though, that strength of schedule does not really matter for the committee, at least this committee. It was wins and losses. Every committee group is going to be different, but we've kind of got a feeling from this one that wins and losses, regardless of who you played or what your strength of schedule is or where the game was or pretty loss or bad loss, it's just wins and losses really are the only thing that really deciphered in or out from the playoffs perspective.
Right. And it's a two-sided coin for me, Fresh. Like a team that didn't really schedule anybody is still, a team that is in the Conference USA or anywhere else. They're not really being taken seriously in it. What you have to do is just be a Power 4 conference team. If you're in the Power 4 conferences, or if you're Boise State who decides to go 11-1 and lose by 3 points to Oregon, you're still going to be taken seriously. I think that the question wasn't about the strength of record. It's the fact is that the committee kind of saw all 4 conferences almost on an, I don't want to say even playing field, but like as a tiered playing field, but gave credit where credit was due. I love the fact that they kept SMU in there. I love the fact that they kept SMU in even though they lose on a last-second field goal from 50 yards, and I love that they point that out. It's the first time in college football history that a conference title game has been decided by a field goal over 50 yards. And the fact that SMU did not look good in that first half. Like they struggled in that first
boat race. I think they were in shock. They were in shock of being in a title game, in a legit title game versus Clemson. That's understandable.
But good job out of them to come back. They're down 24-7. They come back. They storm back in that game to tie it up at 31. I mean, that's what college football is all about. And we've talked about this many of times here. There is high quality football being played across the entire country. Yes, certain conferences, Big Ten and SEC, you have 7 out of the 12 teams. You have 7 out of 12. That is over 50% came from these 2 power conferences. Obviously, look at the media rights deal. They're going to get the most amount of access to this. And then you say a team like Boise State, that spot's promised to a group of 5. So now we've made up 8. So that means the Big 12 and the ACC are looking and Notre Dame are looking at 4 spots. 4 spots. 1/3 of their 33% of the field. Guys, again, Alabama, I get it. You're bummed out by it, but you didn't make your title game. You didn't take care of business on the field. You have a great win against Georgia early in this year, and then all of a sudden you go to the state of Tennessee, not once, but twice, and lay goose eggs down there. It's just you got to win your football games regardless of who's on your schedule.
And I think the same thing, goes for South Carolina. You had you played. I mean, yes, your quarterback got knocked out. You played great for LSU. You got screwed by the refs. It happens. Officiating across football, whether it's NFL or college football, is pretty dang bad anyway. So, you have to sort of come to the grips that sometimes you're going to get calls, sometimes you're not. There are calls that are not made. Get over it, but you lost at Alabama, you lost versus LSU, but you did dominate Texas A&M, and you got smoked by Ole Miss. So the Ole Miss loss, in my opinion, when you got smoked by them, eliminates you from the conversation. I don't care how good you're playing right now, because you and now are neck and neck in an eyeball test, and they destroyed you on the field. And Ole Miss, your argument, oh yes, you beat Georgia, you beat the crap out of us by 18 points. It was a physically dominated effort, but you lost to Kentucky and you lost at Florida. Everyone had wasted control situations. And politicking is one thing, but on the field is completely, the only deciding factor when it comes down to, the very end of it and deciding who that 12 are.
You know what my favorite thing, though, was with the talking heads of listening to all this is like, well, it's always about the conference title game loser. And they're like, oh, well, you're punishing us for the fact that we lost our conference title game because we had to play an extra game. No one wants to like flip that coin around and saying we had an opportunity to get a first round bye if we won our conference title game. We had other teams are staying home because you have an opportunity to win. And in Clemson's point, like they had an opportunity to get into the field. Like every year conference title game, like loser, they had an opportunity to win a first-round bye. Like, if Penn State beats Oregon, they got first-round bye. Texas beat Georgia, they would have a first-round bye. Iowa State would have been, like, the most interesting case. I don't know what they would have done in that situation. Would have been very intrigued to see what happens. But
if we had Iowa State, Clemson, that would have been interesting who got that 4 seed.
Right. But all of these losers, they're not punished for it. They just didn't take advantage of the opportunity in front of them to earn a first-round bye. I hate the fact that I was listening to like these people. Oh, well, does the committee punish SMU for this? Would SMU be mad? Well, SMU's sitting there going, if we would have, showed up in the first quarter and knocked off Clemson, SMU would have had a first round bye instead of Arizona State. So,
it's I think it's more of teams that were worried what the committee would do, because up to that point, the committee was kind of all over the place. And you never want to leave. I think the scary part is you never want to leave it in someone else's hands to decide your fate. And we've seen in the past with like Florida State's case last year, undefeated, whether Jordan Travis is healthy or not, they were undefeated. They won the ACC and they were left out in favor of Alabama, who beat Georgia, who hadn't lost the game in 29 straight games and a 2-time defending national champion. And they got left out by losing by a field goal in the SEC championship game. So I think precedent was set where you're like, and my fate being decided because, whatever might happen in a 13th game where everyone else is playing 12. It's scary, and I get it. And everyone's trying to defend their point and trying to get in. But there's only 12 spots. You got to deal with it. We move on.
Right. We move on, and the field's set. There's nothing you can do. You can't change anything about it. But let's talk about these first-round home game matchups here, Fresh. All of them opening up in very interesting heavy home favorites. Across the board, obviously, you got home field advantage. Which of the 4 matchups are you most intrigued with?
Oh, it's hands down Tennessee, Ohio State. We'll obviously do a preview of this as we go forward, but my initial look at is these teams are almost identical, in my opinion. 2 very talented rosters with a lot to prove. Both quarterbacks have had up and down seasons. Both have great running games. A depth at wide receiver and defensive talent. And both fan bases are extremely hungry for an opportunity to win. So the fan base is going after each other on social media. Is going to be amazing. The game with the talent on the field is going to be amazing. Be 8:00 in Columbus that Saturday night. It's just going to be, obviously a Big Ten SEC, title bout. Now last time Ohio State was in a situation like this, they lost to Michigan and they had to play a Georgia team in the Peach Bowl. They came out playing on fire, and they played probably the best game, in my opinion, in the Ryan Day era. Will we see that same kind of Ohio State sort of button down the hatches and sort of get after it? And then for Tennessee, your fan base and your team, you've been begging to get in the playoff that you're worthy for years. You see your chance to show up. Does Nico, can he handle the road there in the horseshoe? Or how does Dylan Sampson, how does that offensive line handle that hostile environment? That one's going to be the best game, and has going to have me locked in 100%.
And the cold, especially.
Well, it's cold in Knoxville too. It's up in the mountains. Like it's not like we're playing. It's not like
a little bit different of a type of cold.
it's still cold up in there. They're going to be used to it. It's not going to be like if this was Miami having to go to Columbus, it would be no way. If this was Florida State, it'd be a different story. Like there is some cold time. Like the weather gets chilly in the mountains there in Tennessee, but it's still, it's 8 o'clock. It's going to be snowing probably. And I think that actually, this type of Tennessee team probably is better suited to play in the cold because they are a run first defensive heavy football team. If this was a Hendon Hooker team from 21 or 22, it might be a different story where they're so heavily reliant on the passing game. So that might help them in this case.
We'll see. We'll get to that when we get to previewing it, and we'll see what it looks like. I think that those two have the toughest path to get to a national title too, though. Fresh, you think about for winning that game, you got to go up against number 1 Oregon, who has just. I think that because there's been so much debate, it's just been a really impressive job out of Oregon throughout this entire year. They're the only team that's still completely undefeated. And you take a look, they took, Penn State and James Franklin. James Franklin, I'll say this. I got to give him a little. He fought back. That team didn't quit on him, and they played really, really well. Again, still goes down, but at least I think that, I don't know. It's sooner or later – you're like, it's like the guy who's just grabbing at the brass ring and it keeps touching his fingers. He just can't grab a hold of the ring. So I'm intrigued to see, what they do later on. But Oregon has just looked so dominant in so many levels of a football game. Take a look. They got to go there. And then most likely, I think everyone and their sister is picking Texas probably to get out of that number 5 line. That's kind of an easy march, but
Texas, and then getting to have it come back to Atlanta if they win that game, take Arizona State on in the Peach Bowl will be interesting. We can have Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon, Texas, and Tennessee, Texas. That game right there itself would be pretty cool in Jerry World in a semifinal.
Right, absolutely. So it's intriguing. I think the Tennessee-Ohio State path is the hardest path out of there. The game that is the most interesting to me, though, I'm going to say this, Fresh, the Indiana-Notre Dame game. And the reason why it's so interesting.
Never thought that would be a game.
I didn't either, but it's a battle for the state of Indiana. It's not like it is a home game for Notre Dame, but it's not I don't feel like it's a true blue home game because Indiana's going to get to sleep in their own beds and everything like that. You can leave Bloomington probably the Friday night, stay in a hotel for Friday night or whenever they're playing that game. I don't know if it's the Friday or Saturday game.
It's a Friday night game.
Oh, so, okay, you leave Thursday night and you're staying in a hotel in South Bend probably somewhere. But I think that the most interesting thing is that we would both look at Indiana and Notre Dame's schedule and say it leaves a little bit to be desired. Like it leaves a little bit that we still want to see more from either one of these teams. And it would give us a great idea what team is going to be able to give Georgia any sorts of fits. I honestly think that this is the worst case situation for Indiana because Notre Dame's defense is going to hit hard on them. And then on top of that, I don't necessarily know if they're going to be able to have the 2 weeks in a row where they would have any chance at it. Sign me up for like a Notre Dame-Georgia matchup because I'd be very intrigued with those two defenses going after each other. But again, I'm very locked in for that Notre Dame-Indiana game to see who comes out of the state of Indiana.
It's the first Notre Dame home game not broadcast by NBC since 1991.
Wow.
But yeah, that'll be, I think it's going to be a cool, how many India fans can fill the stands up there? How many Notre Dame fans sell tickets? There's been multiple games where Notre Dame has been a home team in a big game and they put those tickets on the market because they know that the values can be high and it becomes, I'm not going to say a 50-50 split. That's ridiculous, but it's becomes a 70-30,
Right. I can see that.
It's still, there's a significant amount of fans, and Indiana fans who have never had the success in football will pay if Notre Dame fans put those tickets on the market. So, how does that help boost the football team on the road? Like the Clemson Texas thing, those Texas fans, I don't foresee many Clemson fans forking over tons of money to go to that ball game because we already saw the price of it was Georgia at Texas. They were through the roof. These are going to be just as expensive, maybe even more. So, That's going to be pretty tough to have Clemson fans in there. But hey, everyone's going to be wearing orange. So you're really not going to know what you're looking at in the first place.
Right.
But this case with Indiana fans being close, not having to really go fly anywhere. You just got to buy the ticket and drive up to South Bend. That might be intriguing for them to fork over and get some more fans in the stands.
I would not be shocked to see that. Again, that 70-30 split you talk about, that would not shock me one bit.
Students are on campus. That's what people are forgetting here.
And no one's bringing that up.
Christmas, the weekend
no
before
one's
Christmas,
bringing that up.
A lot of students, Notre Dame is a international school. It's not like Ohio State where all the kids in Ohio can drive back to Columbus, that Friday night and get ready for the game and crash in their, the dorm or whatnot. This is going to be people coming back, and where the student body situation is going to come from. You're going to have a lot more tickets to sell on the third and on the secondary market, which is going to create either more fans who are coming back in or less student impact, less student zone, student section volume, and more of an unknown, crowd situation.
Right. And that's the interesting thing that, again, another thing no one's talking about is on a Saturday during the fall, you roll out of your dorm room, grab your student pass or student ID to get into the game. You walk over to the stadium because it's the thing to do on Saturday. The dorms are going to be closed at every single one of these universities for the holidays. I mean,
our kids are going to get back in. They're not going to be allowed. They're not going to be allowed back in their dorm. So unless they have an apartment on campus, now they're paying for hotels. They're driving up.
Right.
The student housing situation, they're going to have to open it up. If it's going to be a rare situation, they're going to have to do something to provide for like a freshman or sophomore who lives in Indiana or Illinois or Michigan has come back to the Notre Dame game. Technically, they are paying for that room in all intents and purposes.
All right, Fresh. Out of the first round 8 teams, let's just talk about the first 8 teams. Most overrated out of these teams, like
1 through 8.
No, I'm talking about the first round matchup ones, non-bye teams. Who's most overrated?
I have to say Indiana, and this is the reason why. I mean, that strength of schedule was in the hundreds. And yes, they played who was on there, and they didn't expect to be undefeated. They had Michigan on there, they had Ohio State. Nobody expected Indiana to be rolling. They did what they had to do. And the one time that we actually saw them truly being battle tested, they got boat raced. And it kind of worries me where the psyche is of this team. Yeah, they went out and they beat the trash out of Purdue, but everybody beat the trash out of Purdue.
Yeah.
They beat Nebraska. Nebraska was this Indiana team, are they truly ready for the moment? Because they didn't look prepared in the horseshoe. Now you're going to Notre Dame. It's going to be a night game. All eyes are on you. There's no other game being on TV. Are they going to show their true colors and play what they played versus Ohio State, or are they going to give you something? Because right now, they beat teams on the schedule, but they have not truly beaten quality football teams. That kind of worries me, them getting blown out by Notre Dame. That's probably the reason why the networks put that game as the night game on Friday. Sort of just get it out of the way.
I mean, and stuff like that could motivate Indiana. I mean, this is a very veteran-laden team. This is like this Indiana team. You know who it reminds me of? It reminds me of those Ivy League teams that you see get into the NCAA tournament that are like four seniors and a junior in the starting 5. And some years the Ivy League team runs into, such the number 3 team in the ACC and gets boat raced. And then other years that Ivy League team, because they're so much older, more veteran, more mature, they wind up just because you're smarter as you get older, you're physically more talented, physically stronger as you get older. Are they able to be competitive? We don't know. We really don't know until we see this team play. Because who do you think is better?
TCU. It screams TCU to me, where they actually might have enough energy in this first game. They might. In the first game, they shocked Michigan. They were prepared. But was it sustainable when they had to play back to back to back? Because figure, if they beat Notre Dame, they got to play Georgia. And if they beat Georgia, they got to play Penn State. And then potentially, the gauntlet that they're going to have to go through is going to be very, very, very difficult. So,
but
if the TCU factor comes to play a lot in my mind.
If they beat Notre Dame, does it validate the committee keeping them in the field?
I think that validates. And I think that would show, all right, you've beaten – because, look, I know we make fun of Notre Dame a lot.
Right.
This is
Notre
not
Dame's
Brian
a
Kelly.
great defense.
This is not a Brian Kelly Notre Dame football team where they are paper champions and they're all full of fluff. And then when they meet a real football team, they get the doors beat off of them. Marcus Freeman's built this a little differently, and they have probably had the best quarterback in the last 25 years on the roster of Riley Leonard, who can throw the ball a little bit. He's very mobile. Love running the football. This is a different kind of Notre Dame football team that's a little more loose and innovative. And I think that gives them a little more validity of being in the playoff. And if Indiana beats them, I truly can see, all right, I'm good now. I'm valid. You've earned my respect. Show me that. Because the last time you were on the field in the big game, it was kind of ugly early.
I'm going to clip that and send that over to Brady Quinn. I think Brady Quinn would like a word with you about best quarterback in the last 25 years at Notre Dame. But
whatever. Brady didn't win anything either.
All right. Fresh, here's the hard one for me. The most overrated team. And I'm between two. I think it would be, I agree with you. A lot of the points you made for Indiana, I think that has a lot of validity to it. But I'm also going to look at Texas and Penn State because I think both of them are exactly the same. Both have 2 losses on the year. Both have lost games against ranked opponents and really don't have like Texas's 2 best wins are against now an unranked A&M team and Vanderbilt. Penn State's best wins are against Iowa maybe and Illinois.
Virginia? Illinois. I think Illinois is the only win.
Illinois would be their only win. Illinois. They didn't even play Iowa this year. I guess maybe like Washington, Wisconsin. I
don't really think Wisconsin's a good win. That team didn't make a bowl game.
And both of these teams are in the 5-6 line. I know Texas made the SEC title game. Penn State made the Big Ten title game. You got to give them credit for where credit's due. We can't punish them for playing the schedule that they have. You can't take against that. But I just kind of feel about both those squads.
I agree. Texas needs to show me something versus Clemson. If they come out at home and win 21-17 or 24-20, I'm like, okay, good luck. You're in trouble. If they come out there and boat race Clemson, I'm talking win by like 4 touchdowns. Then all right, I get it. We're talking about Indiana. You validated my understanding, but there are some unknowns with Texas. Yes, they have look good in certain games. They had a lot of tough times with Georgia. They've given up 28 sacks on the season, 13 of them into Georgia. Right. All due respect to Vanderbilt, when you're saying Vanderbilt is a key win, we got problems.
Yeah.
And that's now. Did Greg Sankey in the SEC maybe do them some favors to help boost them up a little bit and give them an easier slate in the conference? They didn't play Alabama. They didn't play LSU. They didn't play South Carolina. They had to play Georgia once. Who else did they have to play? They didn't play Tennessee. They had to play Ole Miss. Like they were given a pretty solid layup of not even having to really leave the state of Texas, not having to go play anywhere. They had to go play Arkansas. Like congratulations, and they had to go down and play A&M. Right. There is some doubt. I think after losing 2 games versus Georgia, especially you play a team second time and you lose to them. You had them at home and you lose to them, and they looked much more competitive in the second game last night than they did in the first one. But there's a lot of unknowns. Is Quinn Ewers actually the quarterback? He turned the ball over 4 times in the 2 games versus Georgia. There's a lot of question marks. And then looking at Penn State, it's consistent. James Franklin can't win the big game. I think it's 1-18 versus top 5 teams now. Right. They fought back and they looked great. Fantastic versus Oregon. Oregon was boat racing them early. Maybe Oregon turned it off a little bit defensively and sort of laid back. Who knows? They came out flat versus USC and stormed back. Until they actually show me they can win a big game. And is SMU really a big game in my opinion? No, it's a playoff game. I will say there's more pressure on James Franklin and Penn State to actually win that game and show up and look good So if they come out flat or get beat by SMU, then we start really putting James Franklin on the hot seat. They have there are true questions that have to be asked about just wins and who you played, and going back to where do we find that fine line of wins and strength of schedule, and those two those two factors we start looking at playoff seeding, not just being in the field 12.
Because SMU is probably the most dangerous team in this playoff because they're playing with house money now. Like the fact that they were the debated team between them and Alabama, who was going to be the one to get in. They're the one who gets the luck of the draw. They wind up getting in over the Crimson Tide. And now all of a sudden, they're the guy who's just, hey, I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. And they're just going to, I think that they're going to be the most dangerous team because they can play loose. Now, you have to go into Happy Valley, which I don't necessarily know if SMU's this year at all has gone into an environment like Happy Valley, especially at nighttime. It's going to be
that's going to be a noon kick.
That's a noon kickoff now? Okay.
Yeah, that's a noon kickoff. Clemson, Texas is 4 Eastern. Indiana, Notre Dame, and Tennessee, Ohio State are both the night kickoffs.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it now. I didn't see the time they had released the times yet for it. We're recording this pretty early on, earlier than normal on our Sunday afternoon here. But I'm most intrigued by SMU. I really am, just because I think that they're playing with house money.
Well, actually, someone brought up a great point earlier, is that the 4 teams at home, Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, Notre Dame, the pressure on you is extreme. Because it's not just, you're not going to a bowl game where you can say, oh, it's a neutral site, we had to travel, we got to go through all the normal bowl functions and that crap and go on the rides and do all the stuff. You're at home. You granted this, you have the home environment, you have to maximize it. And if you don't start showing up, especially if your coach is sort of already, people sort of doubt him, it can actually spiral. I think Kirk Herbstreit brought it up with Ohio State, where if that offense comes out and sort of stumbles, people are going to start booing. Ryan Day might get booed on the sideline for having bad play calls, or Chip Kelly. Like that angst might kick in, become more of a detriment to a team like Clemson, Tennessee, SMU, and Indiana, where, you know what? You're on the road, let it loose. It's win or go home. You might as well come out there and just play free and throw it around. If you win, you win. If you lose, congratulations, you still made the playoff. And you have a little less stress of having that home crowd where the pressure's on you to show up and get it done immediately.
I think it would have benefited, because here's the thing. I think it would have benefited Ohio State to go on the road on this one, just because it would have maybe galvanized them a little bit more. But honestly, I legitimately think that Ohio State-Tennessee game has the most for both sides to lose, because whoever loses that game, they're going to be like, again, Josh Heupel, there's questions going to be about him, because he hasn't, he beat Alabama twice, but you haven't gotten past the Georgia bugaboo for them. You haven't played for an SEC title game. You've had all this talent come through Tennessee, and you just can't make the next jump. Ohio State, you're beating teams like Penn State in there, but you can't get past the Wolverines time and time again. Questions about there as well. I think that game, whoever loses that game is going to have some serious questions over the offseason. Fair, unfair. Again, both programs are programs that Ohio State might be a top 3 job in the country. Tennessee, easily a top 10, top 12 job in the country. Pressure comes with those things. Pressure comes with those jobs.
That's why they get paid. That's why they get paid a lot.
And again, though, it stinks, because you're just like, well, when you start trying to rationalize it as well, you go, it is what it is. But we'll see on that part here, Fresh, as well. All right, Fresh. Next, Heisman is Heisman next weekend?
Heisman's next weekend, yep.
All right, Fresh. Heisman pick. Are you still on the Travis Hunter bandwagon? This is my question to you.
No, I've been Genty the entire way.
Okay, because there's a time where I felt like you were kind of getting pulled over.
No, I mean, look, is he going to win? Yes, because it's a popularity contest, and Dion has an influence over voters. Over some people who they want access to him. So in a way, they're going to try to suck up and give Travis. I'm not saying Travis is not a good player. The dude is a 1,000-yard receiver. He plays great on the defensive side. Congratulations. A couple of those interceptions, though, are because the ball gets tipped up in the air and he's not actually blanketing a receiver. He's just sort of in the zone and gets him. Whatever. But you pull him off the team. Colorado, offense will still be able to move the football because Shador's a good player. You take Genty off Boise State, they're in trouble. And look at my five finalists are going to be Hunter, Genty, Cam Ward, Bryson Daly from Army, and Cam Scatterboot from Arizona State. And honestly, if you take all five of those off those teams, if you take Cam Ward off Miami, they're a 7-win team. That defense is terrible. You take Bryson Daly off Army, that dude has 30 rushing touchdowns. They're probably not where they are right now. You take Scatterbo off of Arizona State, they're definitely not where they are right now.
At all.
You take Genty off of Boise State, they're not where they are right now. You take Travis Hunter off of that Colorado football team, they're 8, maybe there's 8 or 9 wins still. That team has enough talent offensively to score. That one player, whether he's playing receiver or corner, is not going to truly sway that outcome. He's even missed the game and they still won. Shador, I think they really, they were going to pump one of the two. And Shador still could throw the ball around the different receivers in that offense. They found the ground game. The defensive line itself, them getting better and that pressure they're forcing bad throws helps Travis Hunter in the secondary because now he's getting the quarterback to release the ball quicker. So it's a full defensive effort. He's not the one dictating by himself. If he was the only wide receiver and the only option, that's a different story. But he's one of 4 or 5 receivers on that team who can catch the football. Like it's his loss from that team isn't going to truly drastically impact their overall team result compared to the other 4 I mentioned. He's a great player, individual, does it on both sides. But if you look at the stats, what he did isn't much different than what Troy Edwards did at Louisiana Tech. If you look at those number stats, because he actually played both ways and returned kicks. Not much different than what Champ Bailey did at Georgia. A two-way player, I think, just draws feels like, oh my God, he plays on both sides of the ball.
Well, we haven't seen it forever.
Congratulations. It's an amazing feat, but the snap count doesn't matter stats. Stats and wins, and that matters a little more to me.
I mean, Genty, you think about this here, 29 touchdowns on the year. Kid is what? Has more touchdowns than Derrick Henry, more touchdowns than LaDainian Tomlinson, Mark Ingram, all of these guys who are great running back, more than Ezekiel Elliott. You take a look right now, he's sitting at 2,497 yards. He is 131 yards away from Barry Sanders' all-time yard record. There's an opportunity, you're looking at him going up against Penn State SMU. There's a good chance that he could possibly get 131 yards in that game, especially if it's in a dome stadium, which all those bowl games are going to be. I look at that and go, he's got an opportunity to set the all-time single season rushing record. Plus, he's constantly getting in the end zone. This kid is amazing. Genty has been one of the best stories in college football all year long. I'd also say the same thing again. I texted you earlier. Arizona State, who has picked dead last to win the Big 12 and in last place, with how they are going to do that and getting the fact that they got a first round bye, all these things. But to me, it's going to be a serious crime if this is truly a popularity contest. Now, again, Fresh, if Genty winds up losing by I don't know, let's say it's by 3 or 4 points. It is the closest of close Heisman one. Then I think I might be okay with that because, again, people did respect him in that regard. But if it is far and away Travis Hunter just running away with this thing, I'd be all right, guys, come on. Heisman voters, time to give up your vote just because you want access to someone. Come on.
And here's the thing about the Heisman voters. It opened up last Monday, so the Monday before championship week, and it runs through the 9th. If you're a Heisman voter, it's all through an online submission. Why have an 8-day window? It should open the 9th and maybe go through the 11th, a Monday through a Wednesday, or even a Sunday afternoon, like today. Sunday afternoon, it opens up at noon and it goes through, 11:59 Monday night into Tuesday morning. If all you're doing is going online and having to do it, it shouldn't take that long. And you should have it set up after championship weekend because all those games technically count, and that's making a difference to win a championship. That should also be something we get past the thing is if that player is so important and that team, they're driving the team, that team has an extra game playing for a title or potential playoff spot, that effort in that game, the bigger the game, the bigger the display of their skills should become an extra focus point. And that should be allowing a smaller window because people, if you voted on Wednesday this past week without seeing any of what Genty did on Friday night versus UNLV, when UNLV knew he was getting the ball and the pressure to show up and get it done and go get yourself a bid, it's egregious on why you should be a voter. Like, it's just like you're doing it for a popularity contest. You're doing it for fun. You're doing it to say, I'm a voter. No, you're not. You're a scam artist. You should be doing it after all games are played. And if you know what, if no one on your ballot is playing that weekend, or no one that's actually truly worthy is playing championship weekend, I get it. But the window should be shorter because it's very simple. You log your computer on, you turn it in, you click your 5 in the order you want, you hit submit. It doesn't take a week for you to do that for a season. Wait till all the games are done in a short window. The Heisman community, the Heisman campaign does not need you to have a 9-day window. It's pretty straightforward. Wait till the championship games are over, settle it, and move forward in a small day-and-a-half window. It's not that hard to go online and submit your name.
209 in a score this weekend alone. I mean, the kid's a beast. He's an absolute beast of a running back.
I mean, we have a chance to sort of see him potentially break the single-season rushing record. We also have a chance, if Oregon makes a run, to see Dylan Gabriel, not whatever I said. I think I mixed up the first letters, but Dylan Gabriel to become the all-time leading passer in college football history. Like, there are some, chances for individual, historic individual efforts to be cemented in December.
Right. Fresh, I cannot wait for this playoff to start. It's going to be very intriguing. We're going to be along the whole way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell, because, folks, we are going to be dropping episodes all December. Just because the season's over doesn't mean we're stopping or quitting. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. And, Fresh, today starts one of our favorite weeks of the year, our time where we get to salute the men and women of the U.S. Armed Forces in the greatest rivalry game that is only played on that Saturday. It's Army-Navy week, Fresh. Like, we're going to do a one-game preview, and that's it. It's only Army-Navy, and it's just such a cool opportunity that we get to put on a lot of respect for the men who are over there in West Point and the gentleman over in Annapolis. It's just so much fun. I love this week.
It is, it's a lot more than just football. It's the pride, the devotion, the duty, to country, to themselves, to their teammates. We luckily this year, both those programs have actually been very, very successful. We actually talked about them a lot. Usually it's, this is the one we get to focus on, but we've actually gotten more pub with Bryson Daly and the entire Navy football team. But when they show up and they play each other in this kind of game, the pageantry, the uniforms, the history, it's something great. I can't wait to start the episode and talk about it.
Yeah, and it's going to be a 3:00 kickoff here. Where's it? It's in Maryland this year.
Baltimore, Maryland, on CBS like usual. It's going to be really, really cool.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun one. I think this is going to maybe be the most fun we have ever had talking about the Army-Navy game as well. I know, Fresh, this is very near and dear to your heart, thanks to your brother and what he does for the military. But, growing up here, or we live here in the Jacksonville area, which is a strong Navy town, it just is so much fun to do this game.
Yeah, I mean, people, whether they went to school or not at the academies, if they were in the Navy or the Marine Corps or the Army, this is something that means something for them. That's why you get out of service, and those guys, they get together and they chirp back and forth in a friendly rivalry. And it means something to a lot of people, and the tradition of both those prestigious, academies. It's about more than just football. And, at the very end, who sings second? And for a lot of those guys, this is that last moment before they go into service. And, it's kind of a transition from youth to adulthood or professionalism, where once that game is over, the next focus is your first deployment, your first duty station, and really defending this nation and defending the world against the things that are out there that are evil and egregious that need to be handled. So it's a poignant moment. It means a lot more than just the scoreboard outcome.
Yeah, it's an awesome time, man. And, though, maybe just someday, we got the Air Force for the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Maybe, just maybe, Space Force Academy. Just saying, possibly develop a football team. We could have Space Force versus Air Force to start the day. Army versus Navy to end the day. Just
Well,
saying.
Space Force is actually out of the Air Force Academy, kind of like the Marine Corps is out of the Naval Academy. They're like a subset.
Fresh, you have to just throw a wet towel on all my great ideas, don't you?
I got to keep you sort of in check once in a while. Now, if
Again,
they did have a Space Force, would you put it in Cape Canaveral or would you put it in Houston, Texas?
I think you'd have to put it in Houston. I think you have to. Yeah, I think you have to put it in Houston. I mean, again, mission control is in Houston, which is, as a kid for the longest time, is where I wanted to work. I wanted to be Ed Harrison from Apollo 13. I wanted to be
where the best.
Yep, I did not want to be an astronaut. I wanted to work at mission control.
That's pretty cool.
Serious.
That's pretty cool.
I saw Apollo 13 as a kid and wanted to work for NASA at mission control. I did not ever want to go up in space. Not many kids want to be mission control.
Right.
Being a completely different way.
Help get them up in space and help get them home.
Right. All right, folks, another great week at college football. We are here to the playoff and bowl season. So like I said, subscribe to the podcast, spread the word, interact with us, engage with us on social medias. Make sure you're checking out spinnablesports.com. Yep, that's spinnablesports.com because the Irrational Confidence Podcast is part of spinnablesports.com. We're going to have to put out some postseason awards. We're going to get into bowl season. We have so much coming at you, and when this is all said and done, we wind up shifting over to the NFL. So if you stumbled across here, kind of wanted to check out what college looks like, but you are interested in the NFL, hey, we transition that way come January. And then we'll have draft content for you. Special thanks to our producer, Drew. Without him, none of this is possible. Leave us that 5-star review because you guys know those 5-star prospects. Other than that, Fresh, it's been a great regular season. We have our champions crowned, and now it's on the bowl season.
Hey, bowl season, playoff time. It's going to be every game means a little bit more now. A lot of transfer portal stuff. A lot of moving and shaking going forward. But it's going to be great. Can't wait to dive into those previews. Hit us up on spinnablesports.com. Subscribe, spread the word. Talk to us whenever you can, and from there, we'll engage with you. Oh man, can't believe the season's over, but playoff time is going to be awesome. Can't wait to get those previews going. With that, bye y'all.